Hello, welcome to the PRN SLP Substack. This is our very first video recording. As you can tell, we're just two people sitting in our living room recording this, so please forgive the rookie mistakes and basic things. But I think we have a lot to offer you guys. So
I'm actually really excited to share all these things that we've learned because we've learned a lot over the past 10 years.
We've got a lot to talk about. So I'm Jordan. This is Ann. Ann is a speech path. I am not a speech path. And I guess now would be time to go into our background.
Yeah, so I am Ann, and I am a PRN SLP. I've been exclusively PRN for the majority of my career, which is 11 years.
A
very long time. And I kind of accidentally started doing this when I was wedding planning back in 2014. I had finished my CFY. I had moved back home to get wedding planning done. I wanted to have a job or two, but I didn't want to be constrained by my jobs for wedding planning purposes. I wanted to have time for dress fittings and cake tastings and things like that. So I just took a couple of PRN jobs while we were engaged in planning our wedding, and then it slowly just morphed and grew from there. So I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've learned so much. I love working this way. It set me free in a lot of ways. I went to Ouachita Baptist University for my undergraduate degree and the University of Tulsa for my graduate degree, and we've been married for about 10 years now. We have 2 fur babies.
One's right here.
One's right here. You might see her later if she decides to move.
Lolly's right here.
A little rescue dog, Lolly. She's very cute, and she's about 12 years old, so she's a little old lady. And then back in July, I stumbled across a little 6-week-old abandoned, starving, sick kitten while doing a home health visit. And so, long story short, brought her home. She's been with us ever since. Her name is Ivy. But unfortunately, because she's still very kitten-like, she had to be...
She's taking a nap.
She needs to be put away for our video recording purposes. She's kind of into everything. Lolly, on the other hand, will probably nap through this entire video. So
we'll see.
Yeah.
So you might see her.
Yeah, you might see her later.
Well, the other thing too, like this whole thing started because you've been doing PRN this whole time, and every time you'd work at a different location or facility, some SLP at that location would ask you, like, "Hey, you work PRN only? How does that work?"
Right.
Like that's basically the impetus of this whole thing.
Right. I've just gotten so many questions over the years. Oh my gosh, how do you make this work? How do you have health insurance? How do you fill in your hours? How many jobs do you need? All these questions. Because they see how happy I am, and they see how I am in such control over my jobs, over my life. No one runs my life but me. And
how many days a week do you work?
Right now, I work 3 days a week, but they're long days. They're long days. I'm able to schedule. I schedule about 10 to 12 hours each day that I work, and
but you choose to schedule.
But I choose that. Yes, I want to do it that way.
And the demand is so great, you can.
Exactly. And so then I have 4 days off. It's very much like a nurse's schedule, and
that's how you've structured yours.
That's how I've structured mine. That's the thing with PRN. You can structure it any way you want, any way that works for you. It's very, very malleable. It's very, very customizable. And that's the thing that I want to really get across to you guys is just how much control you can have and how much better you can feel when you have that control. So go ahead and tell them about you, because you play a really big role here.
Yeah, so because Anne's been working PRN the entire time, I've been basically running block and tackle for all of the practical financial questions she's been dealing with. So, well, I'm getting there. It's like, so I'm a financial planner. I've been a financial planner for well over a decade now at this point. But deal with all the stuff you would deal with a financial advisor, so from retirement, taxes, all those things. And one of the things that made this clear, like how unique a role this is that one of the biggest questions is taxes. So that was kind of one of the first things we had to figure out for her. Working at different facilities, you have to do different withholding taxes, right? Then one of the top questions people ask you about is how do you do health insurance, right? If you're doing all this stuff. So there's a lot of financial aspects to this, but the cool thing is it's actually very doable. Once you have like a couple basic understanding of the things, highly possible and very empowering once you're able to grasp that. And as an example, like this week, you got sick.
A patient gave me a cold.
And you came home, and instead of you having to like ask for PTO or anything, you just literally said, I'm not coming in.
Exactly.
So you're able to take off because you just don't have to come in. You have control of your schedule.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
And I mean, as PRN, when you cancel or say I can't come in, you don't have to give any reason. You just say, look,
just do it.
I'm not coming in, or I'm sick, I'm not coming in. And there's no repercussions for that, except obviously if you don't work, you don't get paid. However, with the employer themselves, they can't hold any of that against you.
Right.
When it comes to this.
So before we go too far, because we're doing a bunch of rabbit trails right now, so
Sorry.
before we go too far, let's talk about, like, for all the speechies who are tuning in, not knowing, okay, I'm a speech pathologist, all this stuff, PRN, kind of heard about it. What is PRN? So sell me on PRN. First of all, what is PRN? What does it look like? What are the basics?
So PRN, not a lot of people know this off the top of their head, and I had to actually look it up. It's Latin, and it stands for pro re nata. And it means as the situation demands or as needed. And basically the way that it works is an employer, a company, facility, will have PRN jobs available for therapists, nurses too, to come in when extra help is needed, when a full-time gets sick, when a full-time speech pathologist has a list that's entirely too long to get to in one day. Or there are companies that maybe their speech caseload is small enough, they can't sustain a full-time person. So they will utilize a PRN speech pathologist kind of like a full-time,
right.
But there's no guarantee of hours, but you'll be the only person they use because you're PRN.
And to clarify that too, because you say there's no guarantee of hours, that probably freaks a lot of people out.
Right.
But the reality is what?
You're in such demand, if you've got enough places to work, you can make it work. And if you are quick and think on your feet and can plan well, and be flexible, you can fill in your hours. And I've discovered that numerous times over the last 10 years. And this is all stuff we'll talk about a lot more in depth as we go along. But yeah, PRN as needed. So what that also means is your hourly pay is higher because when you're PRN, the employer themselves are not taking out health insurance, they're not taking out benefits, so you get the full rate paid to you. Now, there's the drawback of that. You don't have health insurance through your employer.
One question is, well, how much more are you getting paid? So roughly, if you're doing like an hourly rate as a speech path, it's probably anywhere from like a third to a half more.
Yes.
At least with stuff we've seen.
Yes.
And it may be different depending on where you are, but generally speaking, it's probably at least a third more in pay.
Yes. And so obviously you get more pay, but obviously they're not paying for certain things that a full-time would have. But the other thing too is that when you're PRN employee, you are not obligated to say yes to a shift or to hours or to working when it doesn't work for you. You're able to say no. You're also able to say yes. That's the cool thing too. You can work as much as you want. You can work as little as you want.
I think another question too is most speech paths don't work medical. But when you say PRN, where are you talking about?
I'm talking specifically in medical. I've been a medical speech pathologist for 10 years now.
So are most speech jobs PRN, you're talking about on the medical side, or are they on a school setting?
They're mostly on the medical side. I think that we looked up the numbers, it's 80% are medical. However, I do remember when I did do pediatrics that there are clinics, like private clinics that exist, who will hire a PRN speech pathologist to do weekend makeup visits. So let's say that somebody, like a kiddo, had an appointment, they got sick on a Wednesday, couldn't come to their appointment, their parent could bring them in on a Saturday to do a makeup visit. And a lot of places will hire a PRN speech pathologist just to come in on like a Saturday and, see some makeup visits to keep their business going. That is an option, and there's all kinds of, and there's even pediatric medical settings. Like if you are really into pediatrics and you don't want to leave that behind, but you kind of are interested in doing more PRN things, there's pediatric hospitals, pediatric ICUs, pediatric rehab, like even pediatric hospice. Like there's all kinds of ways you can keep your finger in that pie if that's really your passion.
And before we go too far down that, because I'm sure I can hear people who are just familiar and comfortable working on the school side with kids, that when they hear medical, they kind of freak out. Give like one or two sentences of like, hold on, you can do this, kind of approach this.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A really good place to start if you want try out medical and you're a little intimidated, just pick up like one little skilled nursing facility PRN gig. Just, it doesn't have to be much, and you can control it. You can say, look, I'll come in for like a couple of hours, and just dip your toe in, and you build confidence just by doing it over and over again. But you don't have to just drink from the fire hose.
But it's doable. You're saying.
It's very doable. Yes.
Okay, it's very doable.
Yes.
Okay, that was the thing I was trying to get across. Like
it's doable.
It's doable. So don't freak out.
Yeah, it's very.
It's
doable.
possible. We can figure that out.
If that's something you want to do.
So that's PRN, pro rata.
Yep.
That's how they work. Let's talk about some major themes. So I've got an actual outline here. So if you're on the website, there should be on the page. We're just kind of like touching on the things we have on the actual page for our Substack. Should be the Start Here guide. Major themes. So let's start going through them. So one of the first major themes that we put down was the PRN lifestyle corrects the power dynamic with companies. So in a nutshell, what are we saying when we're talking about that?
What I think we're saying there is that it puts you more in control of your life. And when you work for a company or a facility, there's an inherent power dynamic. Now, when you're PRN, that power dynamic leans towards the facility or the company. They have say over your PTO, when you can take off your sick leave, what days you work, how long you work, but when you're PRN, you have more of that power on your side of the table.
Because you could say, I'm just not coming in today.
Correct.
You can say, I will work these days. You can say, I will work these hours.
Right.
But if you're full-time, you're kind of like stuck.
Correct.
And the problem is with current dynamics in healthcare, but particularly even with speech pass, they're now regulating things that in theory, as a salaried employee, you should be able to have.
Right.
For example, if you want to take your PTO on a specific weekend or time, they could tell you no.
They can.
Correct?
They can deny your PTO, absolutely.
Or
yes.
if the caseload is low, they could force you to use your PTO to cover hours that they can't provide for you. What salaried employee would have to use your own PTO?
Right, what office employee would be forced to use PTO if there's no work?
Right. So effectively, the power dynamic is that you're not even a full-time employee. You're this weird like hybrid thing that's called full-time.
Right.
But if they can't guarantee hours, they're not guaranteeing your hours. So you're not even really a full-time employee. So I guess what we're referring to as being PRN essentially corrects that dynamic where you're in control of the relationship of how you relate to them. They can't tell you what to do. You're in charge.
Correct.
So that's the first point.
Yes. It just evens the playing field. That's probably a good way to put it as well.
And that kind of leads into the next point, that working PRN has more upsides with less downsides.
Yes.
So what would you say on that?
I would just say that because of the level of control you're able to have when you are PRN, that level of control gives you so many more upsides than the downsides that come along with being PRN. Because there are downsides. We're just honest here. But the upsides you get, the control over your life, the control over your schedule, the ability to say no, the ability to make as much or as little money as you want or need, those upsides, in our opinion, greatly outweigh the downsides that come along with that.
Specifically, what upsides are we talking about?
Extra money.
Yep.
More time off if you want it. More control over when you work and how you work. Being able to just say no. Or just being able to be sick, not have to prove you're sick, not have to get a doctor's note to prove that you're sick for HR. And
guilt-free.
Very guilt-free.
Guilt-free. It's like if you need to leave to go take care of your kids.
Yes.
If you need to pick up your kids at school every day, just do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask. You have to tell them why. That's just your schedule.
Kids get sick. We don't have kids, but
if we did,
hear kids get sick a lot.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of full-time friends whose kids get sick, and I'm the one going in and covering for them, but they're having to use their sick leave or their PTO to go be with a sick kid.
Yeah, if they run out of those hours, like they're SOL.
Right. Exactly.
What do you do?
And I just don't think that's a fair way to live.
No.
Anyway.
No, this is just much more humane.
It is.
And then one of the other key points too is that this is kind of a new phase, and this is going to apply to different parts of the economy in general, but specifically with speech pass, those who work PRN now work through their employer for patients.
Right.
So the mindset is a little shift here. Is that instead of working for your employer, right? You're not working for your employer. Your employer is now a platform to do the work you already do. And if that employer becomes a hindrance or a nuisance for you to actually to do your job, replace the platform and get a new platform. And the demand is so great, and we'll talk in more detail about this later on, that in most areas and most places, you'll be able to find someone to replace that facility or that company.
Yes.
So not working for an employer, working through an employer. Your patient is your client.
Yes.
Not the company.
Correct.
You work through them.
Correct.
Anything you would say on that?
No, I think you got that one really, really well.
And then the last point is that you are better compensated for your time.
Yes.
So if you're working full-time, you are paid an hourly rate.
You are.
Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The difference, though, is that when you're paid a full-time one, you're clocking in regardless. So now your time is just whatever you have to put in to get through to get this day, right? Mm-hmm. But when you work PRN, if you're paid more per hour,
I am.
Now you essentially have leverage.
Right.
Because in theory, you could get a full-time pay for less hours.
Correct.
You've got to do some work to do that, right?
Right.
But the idea behind it is that you're actually more compensated per hour of effort given.
Correct.
Than when you're full-time.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about that too is when I do work, and now that I have the schedule that I have where I work really long days, it feels so much more worth it. Like, I'm exhausted at the end of those 3 days, but I know that I've made some bank by doing that, right? The other thing too is that if there's extra little work to do around the facility that you're helping out at, it's more worth my time to stay later and do that work rather than making that full-time, stay late, maybe go into overtime, get in trouble for going into overtime, or not being allowed to stay clocked in, but still working off the clock. So there'll be times that there'll be all this extra work to do, and the full-time is just like, if I can't get this all done, if I'm going to have to stay late, I will literally tell them, no, you go home. When your time is up, you go home. I will stay. It is more worth my time to stay because I'm actually compensated to stay. You are not.
Because a full-time is paid the same in
Regardless,
theory, depending on location, but in theory paid the same regardless. So if they go over, they're not paid extra for going over.
Or if they do go over and get overtime, they get in trouble for getting overtime.
Right, but you're paid extra for going over.
Right.
So it's worth,
not extra, but I'm paid my higher hourly rate.
That's what I meant.
But it's more worth my time to stay.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. And
you're paid more per each hour you do work.
Correct.
They're not.
And so it's actually more worth my time to stay late if I'm able to stay late, which I do try to make that happen for my full-time friends. But I'll just say, no, you go home. I got it. It's more worth my time to stay. You're only being paid to stay to this time. Right. And you don't need to go beyond that. You have a life to live.
And we've kind of touched on this too. So those are the major themes, right? PRN corrects the power dynamic, more upsides, less downsides.
Right.
Work through an employer for patients, and you're better compensated for your time.
Right.
But let's kind of go over, actually tease out the specifics. What are the advantages of working PRN? So why PRN? And sell me on being PRN.
You can make extra money, which is nice. Yeah. And then for me, I know this is not on our thing, but the level of stress that I don't experience anymore is so monumental that I put that right up there. I'm able to be a better clinician, a better therapist. I do better therapy, better work, because my stress level is so much lower than it ever has been because I work the way that I work. And that is possible for you too. It is very, very possible, which is why we've started this.
But the first point was extra money.
Extra money, yes.
Extra money.
And then time freedom. That's the other thing. Just being able to decide what you want to do with your time. You have the control of that. If you're full-time, you're 9 to 5, your full-time schedule is set for you no matter what. I can change my schedule whenever I need to or want to. But having that freedom to do that is a huge advantage. Another lifestyle benefit to this is if you're into travel, if you're into going places, or you need to go see family, or you want to go, you have the ability to do that. You can schedule an extended vacation if you want. You can, And
specifically on that too, you can do it in a way that makes the most sense.
Absolutely.
So when you travel, the cheapest tickets are generally Monday to Friday, right? Because people are or Monday to Thursday, whatever the dates are. But over a weekend is more expensive. So you could essentially, if you want to go to Disney World at the lowest cost and the lowest travel period, you can schedule that to your advantage. Whatever. If you like shopping for groceries when no one's there, so you don't like going on weekends, if you prefer to go pick them up on a Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, you can arrange your schedule where you do it those days.
Exactly.
If you want to pick up your kids every day at school from 3 o'clock, whatever, so you have to be done by 2:30, you can schedule that. If you need to make sure someone's there doing something, so you've got time on the weekend, you could work weekends.
You can, absolutely, yes.
Depending on just whatever you want, but like wherever you are, but there's options of flexibility.
Absolutely, and that's the whole key of this. This is completely customizable to how you want to live your life, and that leads kind of into the next little point that we had there, empowerment. Like, I feel so empowered to do the things that I love, to have the hobbies that I have, to have relationships with my friends and with my family, because my mental energy is not so tied up in pleasing a full-time employer. Because if I have a friend, we've had friend situations where they need help with something, like their dogs got out or, something like that. Well, if they need help, I can switch my schedule around and come and help them and be a good friend and not feel guilty because I'm stuck over here doing this or that,
Or Christmas comes up. Instead of you having to put in 2 weeks of PTO,
right,
you just take 2 weeks off.
Exactly.
Like just basic things.
Yeah. So that just being empowered to live the type of life you want to live, that you're not stuck in this rat race of this, I have to be here at this facility from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then I have to be available after hours to answer questions. That doesn't exist.
So I think something
in the PRN world.
You're indirectly saying, but basically there's less to no burnout.
Yeah, there's less burnout, and you can have control
because
over...
you can control, so you've got like a release valve.
Correct.
Whereas as someone who works full time, you got to be there punching that clock.
Exactly.
And it's much harder.
And that's the thing too. If you're somebody who struggles with mental health, if you're somebody who gets overwhelmed easily, I'm raising my hand here. You can take a mental health day when you need it. And there's sometimes where maybe I don't actually take the mental health day, but knowing I have that option is enough to get me through. Is enough to be like, hey, I can choose to do this or not do this. Just having that in the back of my mind releases so much of that pressure for me.
And the other thing, we've kind of been assuming it here, we're doing to make explicitly clear. There's kind of a spectrum of working PRN.
Yes, there is.
We've kind of been mentioning working fully PRN. That's your only job, which is what you do, which a lot of people ask you about. But you don't have to exclusively do that.
Correct.
You could have a full-time job and supplement your income with a PRN as needed.
Correct.
Right? You could do it weekends at times. If you're
evenings.
If you're working for a location where they do cut your paycheck, if the caseload's low, you could get a couple PRN gigs to fill in those slots and those times.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You could always do that. But there's essentially, it's a spectrum.
Right.
You can work in whatever way works for you. So if you need a little more stability of income and that makes you feel comfortable, you could do that. But if you're open and you could work fully, right, there might be massive opportunity even working fully and you need that income.
Right.
Correct.
No, I know some therapists, not just speech pathologists, but PTs, OTs, who they do PRN gigs to do for Christmas money, or for like an anniversary trip. I mean, and that frees them up financially for other things. So, like they kind of have this thing of, I'm going to grind for a little bit and get this money, and then we're going to take a trip, and we're going to throw a party, or we're going to buy the kids their Christmas gifts. Like and that's the freedom a PRN, even just a tiny bit of PRN can offer somebody, even if they're full-time and need to stay full-time or want to stay full-time.
Right.
And we're huge proponents of that, because even just having a little bit more control over your income, or just if, let's say you're at a hospital and they cut back your hours because they don't have enough patients to see, if you've got a PRN gig, you could probably supplement those hours and fill in those hours to make up for the pay that they're not going to pay you. Or if you don't want to take your PTO, you want to save your PTO, you can just go unpaid, go to your PRN gig and make up those hours.
Right.
And you might have to work less hours of that PRN gig to make up for it because you're being paid more per hour.
And we didn't say this, but I think we kind of implied it, but I just want to tease it out here a little bit more too. If you're working for a facility full time and they force you to use your PTO, you're functionally already treated as PRN in the sense of they're telling you what to do. So if you actually...
Or they're canceling you.
Correct. They're canceling you.
Yeah.
So you can change that power dynamic where you actually can just cancel them too.
Yes.
And then you choose when to work for them.
Correct.
I don't know if I made that clear, but
that's a good point. I'm really glad
that was
you
the
brought
power
that up.
dynamic I mentioned earlier, but we didn't really fully tease it out, and I realized that just now.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because that reminds me of just the cancellation thing goes both ways when you're PRN. And for some people that can be scary and totally understandable, but you also have to realize when you're PRN that you can cancel on them.
Right.
They can cancel on you. But there's no repercussions either way on that.
Right.
So that's why...
That's where the freedom comes from.
That's where the freedom comes in, yes. So that's one of the reasons I don't ever guilt myself whenever I have to cancel on them, on the people I work for. Not that I just willy-nilly cancel.
Right.
But if I, like this last week, I got a really nasty cold. Of course, gave it to him. And I didn't feel guilty for saying, hey, I can't come. Because those same facilities, multiple times over the years, like several times, have said, hey, like sometimes morning up, hey, sorry, we had a bunch of people discharged last night. We don't need your help this morning. I'm so sorry. But that just happens. That's just part of this.
Part of the gig.
So it goes both ways, but the power is even there, and I think that's what you're teasing out is that power dynamic.
People are gonna hear that. So I know a lot of people are full time, and they're hearing, I'm like, what? I'm not gonna have an income for that day. So like that's not what we're saying at all.
No.
What you're saying is, if the cancellation happens, it cancels both ways. But you are resourceful, so you have multiple locations. So if one cancels on you, you can slot in with another location that does need someone to come in.
Exactly.
So that's the key thing to tease out. So I don't want to leave people hanging on there.
Absolutely. And that is something, if you follow along on this, we're going to go into on how do you kind of stay loose and roll with the punches when somebody cancels you, like night before, day of, that kind of thing.
Like, so it's doable.
It
so
is.
It may sound a little freaky at first. It's okay.
Yes.
We'll walk through it. We'll go through those things, so don't freak out. But going back to the power dynamic, that there is this, people think because of a full-time job, it's secure and stable. But the reality is it's actually more of an illusion than people realize. And once you're working on the PRN side, you realize just how much of an illusion it is. And so why not work in a way in which it empowers you to have that actual power on your side?
Yes.
And we're about to enter a time, we are entering a time, where it's actually so crazy, the baby boomer generation is retiring. And as they retire, there are more and more and more people who are needed to help service them for medical things, especially on the speech side. So you guys are in such incredible demand. These corporations are not realizing that they can't just treat you like you're pawns. You're a human being, and you actually have the leverage and the power. So why not use that leverage?
Right.
And be PRN and be empowered to be PRN.
Correct. Yeah, I love how you said that.
So
that's good. That really
okay, so PRN. What's an ideal scenario? Who should consider it? Maybe who shouldn't consider it? What makes sense? Let's start at the top.
Yeah.
And this is the number one question we always get, right?
Yeah, this is what we're talking about this first in this section, is the health insurance side of this. That's a very legitimate question. That's all. When anybody of my friends, any of them ask me about, that's the first question. How do you
do PRN? How do you deal with health insurance?
How do you deal with health insurance? The first thing would be if you have a spouse who has a job through which they get health insurance for, that's kind of a no-brainer. Just sign up through them. Get on theirs. Right. That way you're not worried about maintaining it on your side. That's the most obvious option.
And there's a double dip here. That's actually really cool to point out. A lot of people do the full-time on the speech side because they want that stability of income. If you have a spouse that both has health insurance and has regular paychecks, they have a full-time job, right? That essentially enables you to have the freedom to actually try PRN. Because people were thinking about like, whoa, what if my income's not consistent? What if it varies a little bit? That means if you've got a consistent paycheck coming in to cover the bills, this might be worth taking a shot and trying it. If you try it and it works out, you may realize, I could never not work PRN going forward.
And the thing is, if you can build it up pretty well, you can really contribute financially to your family, and in
a sustainable way.
Where
you can take time off but still make great income.
Exactly. And so it's not like you're just relying on your spouse for everything. Like,
right.
But if you kind of take a shot, if you have that ability to, you can make very, very good money and contribute to your family and contribute to other people's betterment and lives. And but sometimes it just takes a little bit of faith stepping off. But this is not to say that if you don't have a spouse and if you don't have any of those options, that this is not possible. It is still possible.
We know people who are single, PRN only.
Yes.
Who have own health insurance and everything.
Yes.
It is totally possible, doable.
Yes.
In fact, I would imagine probably the next 5 years, I wouldn't say majority, so I don't want to go on that limb, but I think a lot of people are working PRN exclusively.
I can see that. Yeah.
So number one, who's ideal? What would make the most sense? If you got a spouse with both income and health insurance, that's
it's
a no-brainer.
kind of a no-brainer. Yeah.
It's just they can cover those things, and you can help supplement in such a way where you have the best of both ends. You have maximum income, maximum control of time.
Right.
Next.
Another person who would maybe kind of be ideal for the PRN, full-time PRN lifestyle is somebody with kids. I've met several really, really great speech pathologists, friends, who are moms, and they work exclusively PRN because it gives them the ability to do all the mom things they want to do. There's some moms that are fine with the full-time thing. They don't have any of that mom guilt. But there's a lot of moms, I've heard through my friends who they want to spend some more time with their kids, or they want to be available to go on field trips with their kids' school, or they want to be able to, like you said, pick up their kids from school, or go to all the extracurricular activities.
Whatever it is with kids.
So, sick, we talked about the sick kid thing. But that flexibility needed for kids, if that's something that you're kind of stressed about or looking for, this kind of way to work might be really good for you.
Yeah.
The next one,
just kind of interrelated.
Yeah, it is, but wanting more control over your schedule. And we talked about this, if you're into travel, if you have kids, or if you just want to be able to do things, like you find a hobby you really like, but it takes place in weird hours.
It could just be like you just have a scenario where you do not have a consistent schedule from Monday to Sunday, and you need to vary it regularly, right? This can be a great opportunity where on this Tuesday, I'm open, so I can work for these hours at these times.
Right.
Just filling in.
Exactly.
Next point.
Somebody who wants extra money. Like if
I can interject here too, this does not just mean someone who's working at a full-time job and wants a PRN side gig. This could also mean someone who works exclusively PRN to make more money.
Correct. Yes.
So there's multiple ways to look at this. One is like, I just want to maximize my income, but I'm working PRN, or maximize my income working full-time.
Correct. It can go either way. But if you're looking to maximize your income or just make extra money, or even just a little bit of extra money, any amount of PRN is something that I would recommend you consider.
Right.
We talked about this a little bit, but if you are full-time and you are just burned out, overworked, you don't know what to do.
You have toxic
work environment,
bad companies,
bad managers,
productivity is just irrational and inhumane, right? It's just wit's end, right?
Right.
We've seen people working at the exact same company just flipping over the PRN side and just transforms their entire life.
Oh, their entire life is better. They're able to have, like I said earlier when we were talking about this, that control. Having the control to be able to say no when you know you can't do something, whether you're physically ill, mentally ill, whether you're just tired, whether you're just frustrated, having that ability to pull back, but also having the ability to ramp up. I mean, I'm kind of a burst person. I work really well in bursts. And so there's times when I'm like, I'm just on a roll and I'm working and I'm like, I'll pick up those extra hours. I'll pick up that extra patient. And, I have that momentum for that. But then when I don't have that momentum, I don't have to maintain it. I can draw back and take care of myself. Yeah. So that's another type of person, or if you're kind of in that slump or you're thinking about how burned out you are, this is something to consider. Let's see here. Last thing, if you're sick and tired of being told, no, you can't take PTO,
or you have to take PTO.
Or you have to take PTO because we don't have enough people for you to see, or you have to work this holiday, or you have to come back, you have to come back the day after Christmas and keep working.
Or you have to prove, or the doctors note that you're really sick in order to use your PTO.
Mm-hmm. Or your sick leave.
If
you're sick of all that, this might be a good option for you.
Yep.
We've given our example of I literally was sick this whole last week. And no guilt, no pressure from anybody, just was able to take care of myself and do what I needed to do.
Yep.
It was great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
So
in a nutshell, those are great scenarios. Who should consider it?
Yeah.
When it makes the most sense. Maybe let's touch on real quick too.
Yeah.
When would PRN not make sense for somebody?
If you're the type of person who needs just like really, really rigid, perfect structure in your life in order to stay sane, I wouldn't recommend you try this. You try the full-time PRN thing. You could definitely, it would be totally I don't think it would bother somebody like that too much if you had like a side gig if you wanted it, you know.
Right.
But if you're considering doing PRN full time and it would completely throw off your day or make you upset or make you stressed if like somebody cancels and you have to think on your feet and replace them,
right.
this might not be the kind of lifestyle that you want to try to live.
Let's give some hard numbers so it's easier to rationalize. So let's say 10 is incredibly stressed. 0 is like you fall asleep on a pillow.
Yeah.
At what stress level would you say, that's probably too much for you to handle this? Like a 4, 5, 6?
I would say like a 4 or 5.
So if you got stressed, if like your schedule, if someone dropped you one day and you had to find someone else to substitute them, if that would like, you'd lose your mind, right? You're saying, maybe make PRN more side gig, not full time.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like you just have to know yourself and you have to know like what you can handle, what you can't, what is too much and what's not. And make decisions from that. I'm just the type of person, it does not bother me one iota if my entire day changes on a dime. Like it's fun to me, it's exciting to me. But if that to you sounds like it would just really, really stress you out, don't do that. Like, don't do that to yourself.
Some people would be stressed out, not even just from the dynamics of the day changing. They might be stressed out from the idea they want to get paid.
Correct.
So if that stress level is that high, definitely don't just launch off and do this. Do it slowly.
Right.
Now, the other flip side of this, too, is people who may just be comfortable and work their whole life full time hear that, and they're like, well, I should never consider PRN. No. That doesn't mean at all. Their demand is so great that if you actually got comfortable with this working this way, you might be able to actually make this work and make it work incredibly well.
Correct.
But you just have to be honest and aware as you're going into it that there might be a period of time you have to get used to that dynamic.
Like a learning curve.
A huge learning curve.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as it sounds.
It really isn't.
I don't want to make it sound like it's scary, but if your personality and temperament doesn't like that kind of change, just be aware that it might be harder.
Right.
If you're able to handle that kind of change, your personality and temperament is used to that, this could be fantastic.
Yes.
So just caveat that.
Just self-awareness. That's really all we're really saying.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness. Yeah.
So that's all that who would be good for, who may not be good for, all that stuff. Let's briefly talk about how to do PRN. So we're going to divide this into a couple areas. One is benefits.
Yes.
So we've already talked about the number one question is, how do you do health insurance? How do you do benefits? Everybody asks that, right? But the other question too is, we've touched on this, like working different places, but scheduling. So sometimes you have to have multiple different places you work at in order to fill up a whole day worth of work. And then last, working on the medical side. So if we're going to do this, and I've worked on the school side, work with kids, how do I transition to medical? But that sounds intimidating and kind of scary. So let's go through those three kind of briefly. So I'll jump on benefits real quick. We're going to have more about this later on, so I'm not going to go super in depth. Go to the website, go to this Start Here guide. There'll be stuff here to talk about this. And I think you're now seeing Lolly. This is our little dog who's making an entrance talking about benefits because that's how much she loves benefits. Okay. Health insurance. So health insurance. We talked about this briefly earlier. If you have a spouse, they have a job, if they have health insurance, just go to them. There. Boom. Now, if there are other scenarios where maybe their health insurance isn't as good as you'd like or something like that, you've got to go get your own health coverage. So the primary place to do that is Obamacare, right? That's what's commonly referred to as Obamacare. It'd be healthcare.gov. You'd go in there, plug your information in, and it would spit out a couple options to get. That's how you'd get it in a nutshell to get your own coverage. And you want to get your own coverage. If you're not covered somewhere, you've got to get set up, right? Health insurance is the... Medical debt is unfortunately the number one debt in the United States, and it's really bad. So you've got to have some sort of coverage somewhere. Right?
And if you're in the medical side of things, you understand that. You see people struggling with that. So
you need to have coverage. Worst case scenario, they're covering it if it hits the fan, right? So that's all you need. So just get that coverage. Taxes. This is another one that pops up, and you wouldn't know that unless you start working in this. When you do PRN, you generally, and we'll touch this in the next thing, you generally have to have multiple different companies you work through. Right. The reason is because, as Ann talked about, sometimes in one day they might have a caseload drop off, census that goes low, and they don't need you.
Right.
So they need you for less hours or not at all. Right. So you need to be able to swap out. Maybe if this one's down, I go over here to this one. When you do that, and you're working at multiple different facilities. All of a sudden, taxes become a little bit more not hard, but a little more complicated in this sense. When you're getting paid, you're mostly going to be paid W-2s. You have a payroll check that comes through and everything. The withholding for income taxes on that is only based upon that facility and that job. So if I'm working here, getting paid, and then working over here, getting paid, these two jobs do not coordinate.
They don't talk.
So the amount of withholding for the two of them is not going to happen because I'm making more money than I'm actually withholding for taxes. So you have to go to the IRS website, plug in your info to make sure you're checking your stuff, you're holding that, okay? We'll go into more depth on that later on, but here's all I want you to know. You just have to double check your taxes, and if you're not sure, save more of your paycheck per paycheck. Set it aside so that if you're unsure, whether if life happens or you have more in taxes, you can cover it, okay? First thing.
But it is doable.
Yes.
It is doable. It's not, don't think that this should be the reason if you want to try this and you're hearing this part,
right.
Don't think that this should be a turnoff for it. It's
Correct.
not.
Correct.
It's very doable.
Correct.
Yeah.
Next thing, group benefits.
Yeah.
So when you're working full-time in a place, right, you get group benefits like health insurance, life insurance, disability. There are certain ones that if you're working exclusively full PRN, right, you're going to need to carry some things on your own. Okay.
Yes.
I talk about this in the article, but if you want to go on there's an exercise where you can calculate what you're worth economically if something were to happen to you. If you were to either pass away or if you were to get sick, hurt, and couldn't work, like what would happen to your financial situation, and you can calculate. For most of you, if you calculated that, you'd realize real quickly, you guys are actually millionaires. And so your paycheck is actually really important.
And it's worth insuring.
And it's worth basically insuring your paycheck. That's literally what disability insurance is. It's insuring what your paycheck is. So if you're working fully PRN, you've got to carry that on your own. There are companies you can go through and get that. We'll talk more in detail about that later. Mm-hmm. But if you've got kids and you're by yourself, you need to absolutely have your own disability coverage and you need to have your own life insurance coverage because you're not getting those group benefits at a job. Okay. And again, we'll talk more later on. Another quirk, and this is really interesting. You wouldn't know this, but you may not get group benefits at most locations. But guess what you do get?
Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes PRN employees have access to a 401k. So I have, out of the employers I have 2 places that I'm able to have 401ks in. So
why is that significant?
Because you're actually able to get free money if you can get the match. And so
we got to explain what that is. So
help me
a
out.
401k is a retirement plan at work.
Yes.
So I can, instead of me taking the full paycheck, I can defer some of that paycheck, put it into my retirement plan and save that for retirement, invest it and grow it. Well, these companies get a tax benefit by matching what you put in there, right? So typically it's like 3 to 6%. So let's say it's 3%. If I put in 3% of my paycheck, the company will match my 3% fully. So they'll put 3% in, I'll put 3% in, and it looks like I'm getting 6% when they only put 3 in. So the significance is?
It's just worth investigating to see if you sign on PRN somewhere. Ask HR, hey, do I have access to a 401k as a PRN employee? Well, you might be surprised.
Specifically, the benefit of having the match, you double your income.
You do, or you double
your money, not your income. Sorry, you double you double your contribution into the 401k. So if I'm putting 3% and they're matching at 3%, I literally just double the money I'm putting into that.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're working this way, you still need to save for retirement and everything. So this is a fantastic way of just getting ahead.
But it's kind of an unexpected thing that a lot of PRN employees don't realize, that there are some companies that let PRN employees have 401ks. So it's something
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's more than you think. So it's definitely worth asking. Like I said, 2 of my employers do allow it, which is great. So I've been able to have 401ks through these companies, and I didn't think I would be able to.
Right.
So it's been cool.
So last in the benefits section we're going to talk about too. You need this, even if you're working full time, you need to carry this. A lot of speeches don't know this, but you need to have your own liability coverage. And you especially need to have your own liability coverage if you're PRN only. So when I say liability, it's malpractice coverage. So if you're doing your job and you're talking about something and something happens and you get sued in the line of you doing your job, right? You need some sort of policy that will step in and protect you and pay the legal fees if something were to go south. Now, there's a lot of companies that do this, but generally the best for the least cost is actually to go through ASHA. Has a connection. I think it's pro liability for a policy. It's like $100 a year, 115, 120. I don't remember. $100 something a year for like $1 million of coverage. And I don't know the exact number on the top of my head, but it's roughly that.
Right.
But essentially, you get a maximum amount of coverage for a little cost.
Right.
And if you're working PRN, that cost also becomes tax deductible.
Yes.
So it's like it behooves you not to just have that in any capacity.
Right.
If you're just working full time, if you're working PRN plus full time, if you're working PRN only, got to carry liability coverage.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good.
So, in a nutshell, those are all the benefits. We'll talk through those more later on, but I just want to touch on them here. So, Anne, tell us about scheduling briefly.
Yes. So, we will address this as a whole separate topic down the line. But if you want to be a full-time PRN speech pathologist, you have to get good at scheduling. Now, I'm not saying you got to be perfect, but you need to be able to think about your day in slots and be able to organize those slots. And you need a reliable calendar system. When someone's full-time, because your days are just kind of played out for you, you don't really need to keep such a tight calendar. My calendar for me is a lifeline. It is literally my brain, because my schedule is different every week.
And the assumption, just to make this absolutely clear, the assumption is in most PR settings, you're not going to be given a full day every time.
Not all the time.
So if you don't have a full day and you want to work a full day's worth of work, you have to fill it in with something else, somewhere else.
Exactly.
Okay.
But no, there are times when maybe I'll spend a full day somewhere at a facility, but most of the time I'm going from place to place throughout the one day. And in order to keep it straight, I personally use a paper planner, but you can use anything that works for you. And I also color code like a crazy person because I need to be able to, what it does is it offloads everything in my brain about where I'm going onto a piece of paper. And I can just look at it. I know where I'm going. I'm very strict about keeping it very organized and updated. I'm not really a type A person in general, but with my calendar, I am very type A. And I believe strongly in order to do this lifestyle and work this way, you need to apply a type A personality to your schedule. It's not crazy hard as long as you just find a system that works for you. I'll go into more detail later on about how exactly I do mine, just if you need ideas. But as long as you can read it easily, write it or type it easily, and then adjust it and edit it easily, that's all you need.
Let's answer this question because I'm sure people are wondering it too.
Yeah.
How many PRN locations, facilities, companies would you need to work part-time and would you need to work full-time? So if I just needed maybe to slot half a day to extra days worth of work per week, how many PRN gigs would I need?
I would say you would need at least 2 to 3.
Okay.
Maybe just 2, depending on the type of facility it is, how much help they need. You might need 3 just to kind of vary it up a little bit.
The reason you're saying 2 to 3 is because practically on those days you need those hours filled, right? You call one. If they say no, or we don't have any patients today, you go to the next one.
You need options.
And you go to the next one. So essentially the demand is so great, one of those 3, you can generally slot and fill your time for one of those 3.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
And yes, and I would also recommend, and not every speech pathologist is always comfortable with this, but if you can have jobs in multiple types of settings, it is helpful. Because one thing I've noticed over the years is that when my skilled nursing job is low, my long-term acute care is high. Or when long-term acute care is low, my home health is high. Or it's just those settings, because patients kind of shift settings a lot. Like you'll have a lot of people in the hospital, but then you won't have a lot of people in rehab, and then you'll have a lot of people in home health, but not a lot in the hospital. So I found that because I have a variety of settings in which I work, I'm able to kind of flex things.
Right.
Because versus if I had four jobs and they were all skilled nursing, well, when skilled nursing's low, what am I going to do?
Right.
Now, there's some people that they just want to work in one setting, but that's fine. And I fully support that because maybe that's where you're comfortable, that's where you cut your teeth, that's fine. But you have to understand that when things shift around and there's not as many patients in those types of facilities, whether that's a seasonal thing, whether that's just the times we're going through, you got to understand that there might be a period where they may not need you, like not all 4 might need you. But going back to your question about how many employers.
Well, let me tease something out. You said something that's really important.
Yeah.
So something you said that was really fascinating, right? So people probably heard you just say, well, if they're low, they don't need you. That may freak a lot of people out saying, well, why would I work this way if that's happening, right? you're already working that way. Because you're already working for a company that is willing to cut you because they don't have enough. They're already treating you like that.
Because if you were full-time at that facility when they're low and they didn't have enough to fill in your full-time day, they could just tell you to go home and say, use your PTO or we're not going to pay you.
Right.
They could just say the same thing.
So why not work in a way where you have all the power?
Right.
Where you can then, okay, I'm going to go over here and work.
Right.
And then I'm going to take all of Christmas off.
Right.
You can't tell me no.
Exactly.
Boo-hoo. Go away. Okay, back to the full-time job. So part-time, 2 to 3?
2 to 3. I mean...
Full-time? If you wanted to work a 40-hour week,
4
how
to
many?
6.
4 to 6 for...
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
I used to have 6.
Okay.
And that was back when I worked 5 days a week. But sometimes I wouldn't even work a full day that was 5 days a week, even with 6 jobs. I kind of found that keeping the plate spinning for 6 jobs for me was a lot. A sweet spot for me for a long time was 5 different companies to work for. But right now, I have 4 that I work for. 1 fell off, which is, it just happens. It's just one of those things. It wasn't anything, the company just closed down. That wasn't anything I did. But right now, I'm in a really good sweet spot with 4. However, if that ever got to where I wasn't getting enough hours, if I couldn't fill in my days, I'd just go get another PRN gig somewhere else and just add a 5th one.
Because the demand is so great.
Because the demand's very great. And I will say, I do use my other jobs as leverage when I'm asking, I know this is not on our thing, but when I'm asking for pay raises, or when I'm saying you need to pay me fairly, because I've literally told one of my employers, I said, look, you're not paying me the market rate for PRN, and if you don't pay me this and give me what I'm worth, I can replace you in 2 weeks, and I will get a better rate starting at a different company versus if you keep me and you pay me that.
And what did they do?
And what they do, they gave me the raise. Yes. So it's just something that you can use as leverage as well. Because the thing is, if they decided...
That's a whole separate discussion, so don't freak out on that.
It popped in my head because it actually is important. Because a lot of us don't ask for what we're worth.
But let's stick to scheduling.
Scheduling.
So one question that might come up in terms of scheduling is seasonality.
Yes.
So is there high points and low points? What's that look like generally? So just briefly.
No, I would say on the medical side of things. Now, I can only speak for this side. Usually the fall and winter, a little crazier. A little more busy. Yes. There's a lot more demand for me at the places that I work when it's colder, when more people are sick, that kind of thing.
Would it be wrong to say that it seems like it's busier, or it's less busy when people go outside or go on holidays? Is that a fair point? So in the summer, it's a little less busy, and when it comes to like specific holidays like July 4th or Christmas or New Year's, it's less busy.
I wouldn't say on the holiday part, but summers, I have found over the last 10 years, tend to be a little lower on the medical side, in my experience of this. Even working 5 companies, there's sometimes a day in the summer where like I can't fill in the whole day. But I do know later on in the fall, as things get colder, people get sicker, people fall, that kind of thing. I'm gonna make up for probably what I was not able to work in the summer, because it honestly evens out. Because I know that they're going to need me a whole lot more once the weather starts getting colder.
Right.
I have noticed that. True. And so that's one of the reasons I used to really get a lot more stressed in the summer when I would get canceled a lot, or they just would say, hey, we appreciate you asking, we don't need your help.
To September and October, and then you're just busy as can be.
That's when I'm saying no. I'm saying, I'm sorry, y'all. I only have certain slots in the day, and
I can't fill it.
They're all full. I can't come, but I don't get any repercussions for
Would it be accurate to say that it's similar but not exact to the school year? So basically spring and fall is your busiest seasons, and then winter and summer.
Yeah, no, winter and summer. Winter is some of the busiest I can get. Yeah. Okay. Fall and winter
that may be particular to the settings you're looking at, though.
Yes, right? And like I said, I can only speak for the medical side of it. I'm not sure what that would look like if I was in pediatrics. So, but that's kind of how I would answer.
And I think we briefly touched on this. We'll touch on it one more time too. But so we talked about benefits, talked about scheduling. Mm-hmm. Let's briefly touch on working medical again, because a lot of people hearing this are going to be freaked out. Like, I don't know if we do medical, and then they might be freaked out about what if that job is not always there when I need it to be there, right? So we kind of talked about that in terms of they cancel you.
Oh yeah.
So touch on that real quick.
if you want to transition to medical, like I said earlier, it's very possible. And I would hope that you would consider us a resource if you're looking to do that transition. Because when we're going to be talking about a lot of the PRN lifestyle, we're going to be talking about how to work in medical settings a lot as a PRN employee. So if you're a school speech pathologist and you want to start kind of dipping your toe in, we are a really good resource for that. We talk about how to interact with the employers, how to kind of carry yourself, how to schedule yourself, all of those things that would be helpful for you as you're trying to make that transition. We can help with that. That's something that we really feel really passionately about, that we can help with. And so don't feel as if you can't do it. You can. And always, if you're feeling like you don't have skills that you need, you can brush up on those with CEUs, you can get a mentor, but consider us people that we can give you little tips and tricks to make that easier along the way for you. So yeah. So I think did I answer the question okay on that one? I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep. So I think we kind of touched on most of our outline for the website. So if you're watching this, we're trying to put this video on the same post, sort of the Start Here guide, everything PRN related. Mm-hmm. We just wanted to talk through these things. We're coming up on an hour now, so we're probably going to wrap this up here. But please subscribe to our Substack, mm-hmm. Follow us. We're going to try to put these out on a regular basis to answer your questions. Keep going. We're trying to have the next couple posts be pillar-related themes, mm-hmm. things anybody looking at PRN wanting to know. Hopefully those would answer your key core questions. Mm-hmm. So please keep following us, stick around. Later on we'll have whole discussions based on questions you guys have.
Absolutely.
So if you're going through this, do you have more questions, follow up. Mm-hmm. If you want to see more pictures of Lolly, our cute little dog, and eventually Ivy, our cute little cat, we'll have her,
She's
Lolly's saying hi.
She's very tired. Yes, but we have an Instagram. It's the PRN _SLP. I think that's our handle.
Yes, but sign up for the Substack, because that's the primary thing for everything coming through.
And we also have a Facebook page as well. So you can look us up on PRNSLP on Facebook as well. We have that.
But again,
but definitely subscribe to our Substack, because
that's where every core thing is going to be located. So go to the Substack for everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching if you made it this far in the video.
Thanks so much. So I hope you have a good one.